The final factoring strategy. So we're still solving quadratics, and I notice I have x squared and regular x, so I know I need one side equal to 0. So we'll go ahead and start there. I'm going to subtract the 5, and I'm going to line up that 5 with the other constant, the other regular number. I'll also subtract that 6x, and I'll line that up with the regular x, not x squared, because we know our like terms need same variable and same exponent. So 7x squared is untouched. 16x minus 6x is positive 10x. Negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8 equals 0. Now, in part 3 of quadratics and the beginning of part 4, we know that when we have a number with x squared, our first attempt should try to be, can we factor that out? Can we divide all of these numbers nicely and get perfect whole numbers? Well, I know 7 divided by 7 is 1x squared, but 10 divided by 7 and 8 divided by 7 are going to give us crazy decimals. So we can't factor out that 7. So we need to modify our factoring so we can still break this down. Now we are still going to use the box, but this time we are going to include that 7 with the x squared there. Usually in our math, we want to try and factor that out, but sometimes it's impossible. So we'll leave that 7x squared and we'll still put that negative 8 down there. Now we still have to figure out how are we going to break up that 10x, but it's more complicated because that 7 is involved. So when we go to our diamond puzzle, we are still going to go grab the middle number 10, but we have to modify up here. So if we go back to our basic quadratics, if you remember, A is always with x squared, B is always with x, and C is always the number. So that's why we always grab the B value down here for when we're combining. But from now on, we need to do A times C for the top part of our puzzle. So we need to do the number with x squared times the number at the end. So here, you're used to just pulling in the negative 8. But if you have that number with x squared and you can't factor it out, we multiply 7 times negative 8 to get negative 56 there instead. And now we're going to solve this puzzle. What is going to multiply to negative 56 and add or subtract to 10? So after experimenting around in my calculator and figuring out a few options for how to multiply to 56, I found that 14 times 4 gets me to 56. Now I need to make one of these negative if I'm going to get a negative 56. So I'm going to make the 4 negative because 14 minus 4 gives me my positive 10. So right there, we know we have our 14x and negative 4x. And now we need to start breaking down how to multiply. So how are we going to multiply to get 7x squared? Well, I know x squared is x times x. And the only way to get 7 is 7 times 1. So I know 7x times 1x is 7x squared. And now let's ask ourselves, how do we get to that 14x? So 14x, so 7x times what gets us to that 14x? Should just be a 2. 2 times 7x is 14x. Now down here, 1x times negative 4 will get us there. And then this checks out. Negative 4 times 2. So now I have x, if that's a positive 2, we'll say x plus 2 times 7x minus 4. And we just successfully found our factors. And now we'll set them each equal to 0 and solve. This one you just need to subtract 2, so we know x is negative 2 for one of our solutions. But over here, we have 2 steps this time. We're going to add the 4, and then we'll divide by the 7. And we'll leave our answer as a fraction instead of a decimal. Let's try another example. So let's solve this quadratic equation. Well, first I notice I see m squared and regular m, so I know I need one side equal to 0. So I'll subtract 5m, and I'll line that up with the regular m on the other side. And then I'll subtract that 2 and line that up as well. So 10m squared hasn't been touched yet. 8m minus 5m is positive 3m. Sorry, that looks a little crazy. 10m squared plus 3m. Negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4 equals 0. Now, your first instinct as a smart advanced math student should be trying to factor that 10 out. Now, I know 10 divided by 10 would be 1, but 3 divided by 10 and 4 divided by 10 would give me crazy decimals. So I can't do that. So I go straight to the box. I put my m squared term and my constant number here. And now we need to know how to split up our 3m. So we're going to use our puzzle. We're still going to grab the middle number for the bottom. But now, when you can't factor out that number, like part 3 of quadratics, we do 10 times negative 4 to set up our little puzzle here. Now, let's figure out what will multiply to negative 40 and add or subtract to 3. So, I know 2 times 20 can get me to 40, but I can't subtract those to get a 3. I know 4 times 10 can get me to 40, but I can't subtract those to get a 3. I know 8 times 5 can get me to 40, and I should be able to get a 3 out of that. If I make that negative 5, 8 times negative 5 is negative 40, 8 minus 5 is 3. So I will put our 8m and negative 5m here. Now we need to figure out how to multiply. Now this problem is slightly more complicated, because technically we could do 10m times m, 5m times 2m, so we have a couple different options. So when it gets a little more complicated like that, we're going to zoom in, and I'm going to just look at these top 2 numbers, and I want to try and bring out to the side here the greatest common factor between that top row. So what's the greatest common factor in 10 and 8? What's the biggest number I can divide those by and get a nice even number? Well, I know both of these have a factor of 2. Because 10 divided by 2 is 5, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I know that they have a common factor of 2, and this has m squared and that has an m, so I know they have a regular m as well involved. And that's the biggest factor that they have in common. Now I'm going to do that same analysis for the top column. What factor do they both have in common? Well, I know 5 is a factor that 5 and 10 have in common. And then this has m squared and regular m. So I know they have 1 m in common. 2m times 5m gets us 10m squared. And now we should be able to figure out the rest of that puzzle. 2m times what gets us 8m? Positive 4. 5m times what gets us negative 5m? Negative 1. And then this should work out if we did it all correctly. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. So my factors are 2m minus 1 times 5m plus 4. And now I can set my 2 different factors equal to 0. And if you notice, we have both of these need 2 steps. We'll add 1, divide by 2. So m equals 1/2. And over here, we'll subtract the 4. And then we'll divide. So m will equal negative 4/5 as well.